Have you ever asked yourself, why can't I focus on something even when you know it's important? What does it even mean when we say, I can't focus? Well, today we're going to talk about that, about ADHD and about changing the meaning of things. I'm Matt Pathfinder, and our mission is to help fathers raise their sons into men the world cannot break through outdoor wilderness survival missions. Now, I've always hated the idea of labels. Back in the day when I was in third grade, I did have a hard time to focus. I still do. In fact, in public school, it was the most apparent. I remember a particular time we had sat down in our class to watch a movie. And by my 10-year-old, very mature standards, that movie was for babies and I didn't want to be a part of it. So I convinced my friend to go out into the library. And I convinced myself that the teacher said that was okay. So we just walked out of class. The teacher stopped me and called in my parents. And that, along with a few other things, they decided to have a conversation. At this point, after the teacher explained to my parents what had done in the principal's office, I stepped out, and my father later told me that she had asked him, or rather recommended, that I would be put on Ritalin because I couldn't focus. And he asked, well, that's interesting. Why don't you think he can focus? And she said, well, I can't get his attention. My dad's a very contemplative man, so he stopped for a second, thought about it, and said, I can get his attention at home. Maybe you're the problem. In culture, we kind of look at ADHD as a negative thing. Inability to pay attention, hyperactivity, impulsivity. Traditional research really focuses on the negative aspects of things, but why don't we just look at it as a positive, as the strengths? Very few things are actually all bad or all good. This is actually common in humanity, where we focus on the problem and how to get to the solution. There's a video where it says it's not about the nail, and the woman is describing all this pain and the frustration and the worry, and you just see the back of her head and she turns sideways and you see nails coming out, and the guy's like perplexed. If you haven't seen it, go look it up. But he's like, maybe we just took the nail out. She's like, it's not about the nail. But it shows how men really focus on solutions and how we look at the problem, but lots of times the problem isn't what we need to focus on. Many researchers have looked at the negative aspect like we talked about, but others have actually looked at the positive aspects. So there are positive effects like creativity, unconventional thinking, pursuit of new ideas, adaptability, resilience, dynamism. Others have showed hyperfocus, which may seem counterintuitive since a lot of people see ADHD as not being able to focus, but the truth of the matter is they just aren't focusing on the things that you want them to. Or maybe you're not focusing on the things that you want them to. But also humor, high energy. And so all these things, if you look at the two different people, one where you say, oh, I can't focus, I can't do this, I'm unable to sit still, versus someone who's like, I'm the life of the party, I'm so funny, I could have so much energy, I can deep focus on anything I want, I'm creative. Who do you want to hang out with? Well, clearly the second guy. But that's also your choice of who you want to be. It's the same person. Just one is focusing on his negatives, one is focusing on his strengths. The very trait that we call weaknesses, actually, like distractibility, high energy, and nonlinear thinking, can actually be a strength. And it's really not that the brain is inefficient, it's just different. We need to take those tasks that we're doing and match the wiring of our brain. It's kind of like if you were to want to make a cake and you kept following the recipe for bread, and you follow it exactly as it's supposed to be followed, and then it comes out bread, you're like, what happened to my cake? Why isn't this working? You could do it a million times, and guess what? You're always gonna get bread because you're following the recipe for bread. Instead, follow the recipe for the cake. Choose a different focus. Pay attention to how your brain is wired differently so that you can change the recipe to be what you want the result to be. I remember one time I was trying to explain this to my son, mostly awareness, being aware of your surroundings, using your eyes, your ears, your senses. And I did it while we were on a hike in Moab. Beautiful landscape, sagebrush, sand dune. And he just was so enamored with everything else around him but me. And so the traditional lecture of telling him, do this, pay attention for that, just right over his head. But there's an old adage that says, you learn more about a man in an hour of play than a lifetime of conversation. And I believe that to be true. And so I decided to make a game. I said, tell you what, we've walked along this trail. You know the way back. You just follow the trail. I'm going to take this baseball. I'm going to go just around the corner here. I'm going to hide it, and I want you to find it. It's going to be right off the trail. So he said, okay. So I said, wait 3 minutes, and then come find it. So I ran around the corner. I hid the baseball just right off the trail. You can still see it. But then what I didn't tell him is I was going to ambush him. So I backtracked a little bit. And then I kind of hid behind a sagebrush on the top of a sand dune. And I kind of watched him as he walked past. And then I crept up behind him and went, boo! And he just freaked out a little bit and started laughing. And I said, why didn't you notice me? And he's like, oh, I don't know. And I'm like, were you looking for me? No, I guess I wasn't. Were you listening for me? Oh, no, I wasn't. And suddenly he's like, okay, look for, what else was the other thing, Dad, you were talking about? And his focus was on what we needed, I wanted to teach him, which was awareness. And he didn't just stop there. He wanted to do it again. And he wanted to switch roles and be the one who ambushed him. And no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't ambush him again because he had learned. Unable to focus to hyper-focus, but we changed one variable. I heard of a quote that said, your environment predestines your decisions. And while I wasn't crazy about it first, I believe in agency, I believe in free will, God gave us those things. And so I kind of just dismissed it. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized, you know what, there's some truth to that. If I were to go into a bar, I'm much more likely to go and drink alcohol. If I were to open up a pornography website, I'm much more likely to look at pornography. And so our environment does dictate our actions, maybe not predestined, but it does determine in a way. But here's the thing that guy missed. We control our environment. So one of the things I do when I'm working on Pathfinder is I close all my windows except for the ones that are focused on my work. I clear all the distractions off my desk except for those that make me remember why I'm doing this. I remove everything from the office except for those things that help me remember why I'm doing my mission. It redirects me automatically to the things that I need to focus on. My environment makes it easier for me to be successful in my mission. There's a book called ADHD 2.0 by Hallowell and Ratty that talks a lot about this, about changing the environment to help us focus, because otherwise, when we don't control the environment, we are basically predestining ourselves to lose focus or to be distracted. Now you may be asking, well, Matt, I've been told this my whole life that ADHD is a weakness, that is not my benefit. How am I supposed to just change it like that? There is a quote by Tony Robbins that really helps, and it is, life isn't happening to you, it's happening for you. In other words, you're not a victim, you are a victor. So what's the difference between life happening to you versus life happening for you? And what I've learned is it's all about the meaning that we associate with it. The same person, one person who has ADHD sees himself as erratic, as hyperactive, inability to focus. So what are they going to get? More hyperactivity, more irritability, more inability to focus. But then the other person who also has ADHD says, I'm fun, I'm creative, I have high energy, I can hyper-focus on things when I need to, and I control the environment to make sure I do those things. They are the person who are going to achieve great things. They're the same person with a different meaning. And then the environment is like that recipe that we need to follow. If we have the right recipe, we're going to get the right results. And then we'll be able to use those tools, or at least figure out how to use them to get the results that we want. So it's not something that you want to eradicate, it's something you want to leverage. Another thing that Tony Robbins says is the only thing that's keeping you from getting what you want is the story that you keep telling yourself. Keep telling yourself you're incapable, you're going to be incapable. Keep telling yourself that you're totally capable and you're even world class, that's the result you're going to get. So 3 actionable tips for this whole thing. 1, control the environment. Make sure that you are surrounding yourselves with things that remind you of what you're doing. That way you don't get distracted on other things when it gets tough. 2, make sure that you match tasks to how your brain is wired. Look for things with more high energy, that require high focus, that require movement. And 3, reframe that meaning. Change the meaning. Quit looking at yourself as a victim of ADHD and look at them as a victor with ADHD as your tools. To sum it all up, focus isn't about trying harder. It's about understanding yourself and the terrain of your mind, or the environment that you see yourself in. That's how we build boys into men that the world cannot break.